This is Steve Rao, the host of Pod and Roku TV's World Edition. I greet you live from the all America city of Morrisville, in North Carolina, the eighth largest state in the United States, wearing my West Virginia shirt as West Virginia begins their new season, and that's my home state. So, looking forward to the beginning of college football. On this show, we talk about global affairs, innovation, an increasingly turbulent world politically, economically. But the one topic that I'm getting approached a lot about by local radio shows and TV shows is artificial intelligence. Recently, the CEO of IBM announced, Arvind Krishnan, that IBM would eliminate 8,000 white collar jobs in the next few months. And this really got me worried, as many of us did, of what's going to happen to jobs in the US and around the world as AI continues to accelerate in terms of digital innovation. It just seems like yesterday when ChatGPT was announced, and now everywhere we turn, the elephant in the room is artificial intelligence. I've been reading vast books and periodicals about this, getting anything I can read in The Economist. Just finished up Henry Kissinger's book, but still didn't get the insight that I really needed. So I said, like the movie, like the old show where you would phone a friend for a lifeline. I said, which friend can I phone? And I did. I phoned a friend. John Chambers, the former CEO of Cisco, chairman emeritus, and now CEO of a venture firm in California. Now, John ran a $47 billion company, acquired 180 companies in his 20 years as CEO. So I spent about 45 minutes with him yesterday on the phone, actually on a Zoom call. And what I learned, a couple of points I want to share as we open up the discussion and get into some other things going on in the world. Well, the first thing that John mentioned is that when the internet came along in the 90s, everyone thought it was doom and gloom. And yes, jobs were lost, but then there were many new jobs created. And we used human skills to the jobs where they would be more valued. Median wages went up tremendously, and the United States had significant growth in our economy after the dot-com boom. Now, it's going to be a lot of jobs being lost or decimated. Desk jobs, customer service jobs, typical call center jobs. All of these jobs could be gone within the next year, maybe even 6 months. But there could be many new jobs created, and it's going to be very important, Chambers says, to train and retrain our workforce for these jobs of the future. The other point that John made is that there's going to be a tremendous opportunity for startups. Many of the startups that he's investing in today had AI involved in them, AI applications, and 2 of them are unicorns. But what he's saying is that every business must tie their business to AI. It's not just a productivity tool. So he's actually requesting for many of his investments that he makes in his companies or portfolio companies or other companies seeking funding that they have artificial intelligence tied to their business. I think it's interesting what Chambers says as he ended the call with me, that this has crossed the chasm. And what he means by that is now artificial intelligence is mainstream. It's here to stay. It's going to be a part of our lives. It's going to have a profound impact on our economic growth, the jobs that we know of, that we traditionally have grown used to. It's going to have an impact also on ethics in our society. Who controls the data? Who manages the data? And national defense and security. All of these things should be concerning to us. But I think it's important for us to have an open and honest conversation about it. I do hope to bring John on our show in a few weeks, and he will share these ideas. But just want to bring that up. I wanted to bring a couple points up before we begin. China has taken measures to reinvigorate economic growth and prop up its currency. Vladimir Zelensky said his country had built a new long-range weapon that can hit targets 700 kilometers away. And there's a typhoon headed towards China's southeast coast, Saula, 209 mile per hour winds. Prisoners took Ecuador 57 guards hostage in Ecuador, and South Korea's capital will recruit 100 domestic workers to encourage more women in to have children. And the number of the day, 20,000 nuclear warheads in the world. That number is down from 76,000 in 1988. So we've made progress in reducing the number of nuclear weapons, although 20,000 is still a lot of nuclear warheads in the world. Let's get started. Mark, I'm here for about 40 minutes today. I wanted to thank you all for being here to wrap up the week. College football season starts. John Isner, great American player, has retired. 6'8" from North Carolina, had a great career. Grew up in Raleigh, trained in Raleigh, and today on WPTF we're gonna have Andy Andrews. Actually, reached out to Isner. He's gonna come on next week, and a lot of moms winning on the U.S. Open. Caroline Wozniacki, 2 children onto the third round, and a number of young women in their 30s with children winning Grand Slam matches, which is inspiring. So anyway, welcome to the show, everybody. Thought I'd kick off with AI and what John said. I'm start. Pretty interesting, but I walked away from the call more optimistic. I'm going to start with Shaquille Latimer. Maybe it's not as doom and gloom as everyone says. That we have innovation, these things happen, we pivot, we adjust, we'll bring it into our society. Shaquille, what do you think?
Oh, I'm sorry, I actually missed the open because I was off doing something else. I'm not sure what you're referring to.
We were talking about artificial intelligence, and I had a call with John Chambers yesterday, former CEO of Cisco, because I'm working, I'm getting a lot of calls about this in North Carolina for news and radio. What John said, Shaquille, is that when the internet came along, everyone thought that, it was going to be the end of all the jobs. And then, a lot of things went online, but it refocused human skills where they were more valued. And we actually saw GDP growth. So he said that it's not doom and gloom. There's going to be new jobs created. It's going to be happening faster with IBM announcing 8,000 white-collar jobs being eliminated this year. But anyway, just wanted to get your thoughts about AI.
I wouldn't read too much into IBM. Get rid of 8,000 people. The tech sector is currently hemorrhaging staff due to potentially there being a lack of growth in the future, given how much growth they've had in the past. They put on a lot of extra staff during COVID. So I'm not too concerned about that. But as a general thing, look, I think we should embrace technology. I think we should be somewhat careful about about how we let technology displace us, and whether there should be some roles where human intervention is still required. But look, when the United States was founded, for example, there was a significant proportion of the population that worked in farming. Now, less than I think it's 10% or 12% of the population works in farming. Computers have displaced so many people. If you're an accountant, as Lee is, you're not sitting there, with those hand sort of calculators and doing things by hand, and you've got rooms and rooms full of people crunching numbers. That's not how accounting is done now. So, across the board, we've seen technological advancements, which I think is something that we should embrace. But we should always be careful, as I said, of not handing too much over to AI. I think where people get scared, and certainly I am, is the video that Lee pointed out, showed us where Chinese school students had that band on their head that was monitoring whether they were paying attention or not. I think, automated AI to deal with the justice system, or, things like that, or even when it's applied in healthcare, where if something says that you're at low risk of something, you go and report that you're having symptoms, and they say, well, the computer says that, you're fine. That sort of stuff is perhaps where we need to be careful. But for the most part, I'm pretty happy with it. Lee?
Yeah, just a few years ago, as manufacturing jobs were hemorrhaging, people were told, to learn to code. How's that working out?
Yeah, no, you're absolutely right, Lee. But that might be over the current generation. I don't think it's going to be over future generations. And I don't think that the alternative would be that we have technology that would help us and we don't use it. I don't think that makes sense. There's a good argument for, if we do develop the technology to have driverless vehicles, do we want to see all the truck drivers out of work? I'm not advocating for people to be out of work, but what I am saying is that if the technology improves, then, we should accept when things are going to make our life easier.
But we should also be bringing manufacturing back to America for things that we need, whether it's pharmaceuticals, certain things. So we're not at the China, or whatever country just taking over for us. That, we're not sending you pharmaceuticals now during a pandemic.
Well, that's a different topic, and to some degree, I would agree with you. However, the United States has to be realistic about the economic conditions that it's in. Donald Trump, when he talked about this America First policy, which is something that I certainly like the idea of that. It sounds good theoretically, but you have to remember that ultimately, if the cost of labor is more expensive in the United States than elsewhere, the only way that those companies can survive and compete is if you get government to give them some sort of protectionist intervention, whether that be putting tariffs on overseas made goods, or whether that be by forcing people domestically to pay more for goods that are manufactured locally. There is a trade-off in a global economy.
Hey, just really quickly, I had a thought for Jacoby, and I was wondering what his thoughts were, since you mentioned the education aspects. I do know a number of people that are trying to learn coding, even some of the folks that are in the older space, meaning middle age, and even some of our elderly as well. So I'm wondering, and I don't have any school age children of my own, if that is something that we are seeing more kids learning at a young age. I know that at one of the centers I work at, they're definitely learning about drones and robotics. So I imagine that there is some coding involved with that, since the gentleman that is running that part of it is out of Cisco and all along those lines. But Jacoby, you've got young kids. Are you seeing them learn coding? And is that something that we're going to see similar to like foreign languages? Because we do know that historically, a lot of folks are supposed to have one of the foreign languages when they got into high school. That was actually my Achilles heel, because that's one of them, but that was not something that I was a master at, and all along those lines. But are we seeing more folks that are learning or required to learn coding in the school system?
Yeah, coding is definitely being pushed in the school system for kids to learn. We have to realize that not only that things are changing. And with the advent of the way that AI is changing, it is definitely going to take a lot of jobs. It's going to take a lot of things away. It is a double-edged sword because it is helpful for us. There are things that AI is that will be used for in the medical field, in tons of fields. For example, utilizing AI and quantum computing. That's the big thing, is once quantum computing comes and
disease prevention, right? I mean, in terms of, and let me explain something before we get to Lee and Sasha. I want your input on this, and then we're going to dive a little bit into Ukraine. But Jeffrey Hinton, who's the godfather of AI, I think this Sunday should Fareed Zakaria is doing a special show on AI. But the godfather of AI explained it very well. His name's Jeffrey Hinton. He used to work at Google. He said that if two human beings are talking to each other, the communication is between the two of us or three of us, and you can only come up with a certain number of sentences between those two people. But imagine if you had 40 computers, and each computer could talk to another computer, and they could access the data. Imagine how much faster and smarter those computers could become in a matter of minutes. So it's sort of scary, because he said human beings can never gather and compile and disseminate data that fast as hundreds of computers simultaneously. So
even
scarier.
The even scarier part, Steve, or the even more wild part, is the quantum computer aspect of it, and the way quantum compute. For people to understand quantum computing, even if you're talking about those 40 computers, if you think about a maze, there's that one pathway in the maze that goes correctly. But in that maze, the way computers work, the maze is it'll go down a path, stop, find the end, come back, start again, go through again. The way quantum computing works, instead of it going down one pathway, it's going down every pathway at every single second. And it finds the end. So if you think about the way it naturally talks, the way Steve's talking about, quantum computing basically tacked on to AI, it can do natural speaking. It can think of everything that you're thinking about roughly about the same time. One of the greatest inventions is the human brain, but quantum computing is the closest thing that will come to a creation of the brain. So add in the AI on top of that, and now you have basically another cybergenetic human
Jacoby?
job. So So that's the way the technology is going right now.
Yeah.
Before we
One second, Jacoby.
Right.
Not all our decisions are based on information. Some of them are intuition and emotions, and that AI can't take over for.
But the thing is, that's where quantum computing comes in. Quantum computing, it takes all the as many possibilities as we can think of.
I get that. Yeah.
So then, yes, the intuition and everything else, it tries to navigate in a similar fashion. That's the way quantum computing and AI will end up working out. The way that AI is now is it takes that information in and creates a pathway. It's a different navigation than the way quantum computing would be, along with AI, would be the closest thing to what the human brain is doing. So, I mean, just as you're talking about, decisions are made on other impulses as well. Quantum computing would make those decisions not based on that information also. So it's just wild to think about how quantum computing works and thinking about all these different possibilities that it thinks about instantaneously, the way the brain is thinking about this.
Hey, Jacoby, speaking of instantaneously, and ironically, it was a person that has been on the Pod TV several times, and he called me into a show of his yesterday, a late night show, and he usually does them in the morning and all, but it was actually Sharif's show. And one of the things he was talking about, which I know a lot of people are concerned about because of the ethics, and I know that Lee Newton Rhodes is a big person on ethics and values and all of that, is the notion of human cloning. So there are some folks that are concerned whether AI will lead to that, and that is actually what Sharif's show was dealing with. And it wound up being me and Sharif having a whole discussion around human cloning and some of those ethics that might be existing within that. But is that something that we need to be afraid of as well? Because I know it was many, many decades ago that Daisy was cloned, but there are still people out there that are concerned that we could even manipulate into a Handmaid's Tale kind of life if human cloning is part of the conversation with AI. So is that something that you are worried about even as AI grows? And that's for both you and Steve, because like I said, it was a very interesting conversation. I did a lot of research during that time, looking at some of the ethics, some of the things that the churches are saying against it, and a number of other things.
Cloning is ethically cloning. Yes, it will be. Cloning's been around for a while. They've done animals already doing cloning. Well, doing cloning with animals, and then breaking down the barrier. That's a human thing, and then it goes into AI dropping in cloning. So yeah, I mean, it's still going to be the same thing. But again, we think old times and traditions, and but we have to realize everything is changing quickly now, and we have to get off the high horse that AI won't be able to take. No, AI can take over every job out there, and it can happen. There's no ifs, ands, and buts about it. It's just the technology isn't there yet for that particular position, and it is coming.
Let's go to Sasha first, his final opinion, and we're going to dive into Ukraine and talk about some other issues. But Sasha, what are your thoughts about this?
You're on mute.
He's on mute. That might be my fault because he had some background noise. Hold on one second. Sasha, go for it.
Yeah. Oh, Jacoby, very quick question to you. You just mentioned that AI can take any job whatsoever. Do you think that AI could take job of the presidents of United States of America?
Yep.
Okay. Now let me elaborate on that. Let's have the present situation with the war in Ukraine and Biden policy of, he says basically that he wants to avoid an escalation. That's why he's not supplying F-16s and ATACMS missiles or so on. But what he means is very different from what he says. It's not an escalation he's scared of. He is scared of thermonuclear war. That's really what escalation. What means escalation? Ukrainians now can do escalation any way they pleased without Biden's approval. In fact, Zelensky yesterday made an announcement that Ukraine now has its own missiles that can fly at least 700 kilometers, which is way more than they need to reach Moscow. And they're planning to increase it to 1,000 kilometers, maybe even 1,500 kilometers, right? So that would lead to an escalation, but that would not lead to a thermonuclear war. Now, if these missiles would be supplied by US, then it could lead to thermonuclear war because American missiles are creating damage and death in Russian cities. But as long as Ukrainians are doing that, that's not a nuclear war. It's an escalation, and they're right to do so.
Let me explain something, and then let's go to the next issue. But this is a topic we're going to be bringing in some speakers next week about. Let me last point. You know, you could have, for example, a computer-generated image of Joe Biden that the computer would be trained. This happened with Tom Cruise. So eventually, you could have a computer-generated image that looked like the president, voice recognition, voice that would sound like the president, and their technologies were the data, all of Joe Biden's sayings and everything. The machine could learn all of that. You feed the data to the machine. So you could have a president that's not real appear on television as an AI-generated president, and then Russia could do the same thing. So this is a very scary reality that the computers could basically take over. There was a situation where Tom Cruise was playing a guitar late at night. It looked like Tom Cruise, but it wasn't Tom Cruise. The entire thing was a
You're talking about that AI can create something that looks like president, what sounds like president, or so on. I'm talking about the process of making decisions on all available information.
Absolutely.
Would that make decisions similar to Biden's or different from Biden's?
Yes.
I don't know. Maybe they would make decisions better because they would, as computers get the data, and they may look at things differently and say, we're not going to do this or we're going to do that. That's the whole point. Maybe they would make decisions better because computers are smarter than humans.
I disagree with that because no computer, no AI or quantum computer cannot get inside of Putin's brain. And if that is impossible to do, then all the calculus is way out of reality.
Sasha, just to point out, and I mean, are you saying that a computer could not outthink Putin? Is that what the thing is?
No, they cannot because no one in the world has the wealth of information and thinking process of Putin, how he makes impossible to do. And also don't forget that Putin is changing. Putin today is not the same Putin which was 5 years ago or 15 years ago or even 25 years ago. So
hold on a second, Sasha.
Just an easy answer to your question. Because what you're saying is, if you believe that Putin is so intellectually above the other individuals that they cannot outthink Putin, take, for example, chess grandmasters have been beaten by AI in chess.
It's completely different story
because
the reason it's not,
Sasha, the reason it's not is because just like in war, and just like in this conflict and this battle, it's about moving pieces on a board.
Absolutely.
And this is what Putin is thinking. And if Putin is deciding that,
disagree 100%. Could anybody think even a month ago that Ukraine will develop its own missiles with a 700 kilometers range and already successfully used it, by the way? So anybody can predict that? Oh, they were saying, US will stop supply weapons and Ukraine will go on its knees. It's not going to happen, though.
Information that computers can hold, and especially since Steve is even pointing out, if you got 40 computers, that's more information that can be accessed at one time than one individual can actually access in their brain at that moment. So having a plethora of computers and even just having one quantum computer, having the amount of information there readily available is much better, is scarier than having, hey, well, they're never going to be able to outthink Putin. Actually, that computer will quickly. And that's the scary part.
Jacoby, just really quickly, because there was a recent attack, and I know that Sasha's aware of it, where drones hit one of the Russian airfields and all along those lines. I'm thinking those drones were not actually being human flown. So I'm thinking that there was probably some artificial intelligence involved in that drone attack. And I also just recently read that a Russian hacker, which we know that they're very much involved in the computer system, infiltrated Ukraine's battlefield devices. So in that sense, a lot of what we're talking about is happening even on that battlefield. Am I not correct in thinking that the drones are being flown artificially?
Okay, they have very different drones in Ukrainian possessions. Some drones are being used to probe Russian defenses, to find out where Russians have more defenses, where it has less defenses, or in most times it have no defense, air defenses at all. So these are drones just to probe Russian defenses and figure out where they are. Now, second type of drones, they are actually to fly where they have been programmed to and inflict damage to Russia, either infrastructure or killing people or so on. Now, by the way, Ukrainians started to use now super snipers, whose role is to identify commanders in Russian army and kill them with just one shot. They're very successful at it, and already several commanders were killed on a battlefield. So now I'm not talking about the sea drones. They have army of sea drones, very high-speed boats that have explosives material and quite substantial, and they're hitting Russian targets in the Black Sea. And Russians so far have no better defense as to drown their own ships. So that would be some kind of impediment on Ukrainian drones to reach it. But it's like it's a comedy, it's a movie, it's not serious defense at all. But anyway, Russians are amusing. Well, they're bringing down the ships that already commissioned to be sent on a scrap and so on. So this is neither here nor there. Now, I am of the opinion that in foreseeable future, the computers, quantum computers, artificial intelligence, all that will have absolutely no role in decision-making of top politicians, except one thing. Okay, they could be useful to calculate the available knowledge about how much planes, bombs, missiles, or so on each side has, what kind of those missiles and drones and fly the submarines and everything else. But again, that only information that is already available to any serious politicians anyway. So okay, so they can probably have more timely information, which will help top politicians to make decisions. The computers, AI, quantum computing, anything else is absolutely useless in this process.
The sad part is, I think, Lee, the thing that you touch on is the thing that is separating us right now. And that's the scary part. Empathy is one of the biggest things that helps in our decisions. Take away empathy. If you think about individuals who don't care and don't have any empathy for the other human life, what happens?
Well, Sasha, you ever play chess against somebody and they make a totally unpredicted, irrational, according to you, move, and it just throws your game off?
Yeah, but it's not by design or by desire, better to say. It's, well, humans are prone to mistakes, and Shaquille probably knows a little bit about that. So when you're making a mistake, you're losing the game.
It's not a mistake. A grandmaster.
Nothing to be done about it.
Sometimes they do it just to throw the other person off, whether it's a Bobby Fischer or somebody. It's a psychological game they play.
But then what if you're going against, again, if you take battle, for example, a lot of humans, even in war, those individuals that are even using those guns don't want to hurt the individual. Take that empathy away. That's a computer. They're not
I
empathetic.
get all that. One reason I think we missed on 9/11 is on our minds, we never thought or dreamt people would sacrifice their lives and fly planes into buildings.
And so now you have a computer that makes that decision to go ahead and do this because they have no empathy.
Lee,
But that's
hold on a second, Lee.
win.
No, Lee, hold on a second, because there's been kamikaze attacks of all sorts
You're right.
throughout history.
Okay.
So I don't know if we might have been caught off guard the fact that it happened on American soil and all along those lines, but it is not new for people to sacrifice themselves and all along those lines. And one of the things I was going to bring up even to Sasha is that one of the things that he's brought up on several of his shows, the fact that Americans don't necessarily have to lose any bodies in this war that is going on while they are able to further the Western cause and all that, because Ukraine is the ones that are in the front line, to borrow Sasha's words and everything. So imagine what it would be like. It's kind of like what I was talking to Sharif about yesterday, which is that whole canary in the coal mine metaphor and everything. If you can send something out that is sacrificial in the first place, because if it is artificial intelligence or it is robots, can you imagine what those kind of wars would be like? People will be sitting in their
No,
homes
I get that,
wherever
Mark,
they
but not all cultures, not everybody in the world thinks like Americans think.
Yeah.
They have different value systems, different judgments.
And then
So,
check
a couple
this out.
of-
This is where it gets really wild. Is once that sentient being becomes self-aware. So now you have that. I mean, that is our future. I mean, these things are happening. because-
Chitopia, are you for real? Or are you one of those things, experiments?
No, I'm for real, but hey, that's the way our future is going. I mean, that's why we have to. That's why these AI companies are afraid. That's why everybody. I mean, this is coming, and our grocery stores. We have, we have the lanes used to be filled with people for checkout, but now they're not. They're little robots.
innovation continue. So guys, let's go into some other
Hold on a
things.
second. Hold on a second. Let me. I was going to get to another issue, actually a political one, which I know Sasha will love. But let me get this correct, since we're having
I'll keep moving guys.
moment of
With other
levity.
issues.
Since we're having a moment of levity, we just learned that Lee Newton Rhodes is not using an abacus, because that's what the reference that I heard earlier and everything about
Or slide
accounting
ruler.
and everything, and that Jacoby is really a robot. So these are things that we have learned today on the show and all in that space. But one of the things I was going to ask about politics is there is a major conservative wing out there that is concerned about Mr. Trump, and they are pouring a lot of money into ads here. So there is a super PAC. It's actually run by Mr. Koch and all in that space, and they are concerned that if Trump stays in the office, that guarantees a Biden victory and all along those lines. So they are bought TV ads in Arkansas, Tennessee, and North Carolina, and they have specifically said that they are doing this because they are afraid of a Trump victory and all in that space. And a Democrat hasn't won North Carolina since 2008 when President Barack Obama took the lead from Senator John McCain. So is this
Mark, did the Kochs support Trump in 2016 or 20?
They're basically, it's a conservative super PAC, Americans for
No,
Prosperity
I get that.
Action.
Are these people in this super PAC, did they support him in previous elections? And now they had to change their heart? Or they just never supported him to begin with?
I think the Koch brothers supported him in the past, but I'm not sure of that and everything. But they are concerned that if he stays in office, that we are guaranteeing a victory for Joe Biden. So that's one of the things it said in one of the commercials that aired, I think, even during the Republican debate. So they are saying that they have significant concerns regarding his electability, and it believes that their message resonates with supporters who are open to alternative candidates. So they are.
What's the
highlighting
alternative
Trump
candidate they would recommend?
They didn't say in the commercial, but I'm thinking that they will probably be thinking either DeSantis or Vivek or a number of the other ones. But they're just pouring, I mean, it's close to $1 million. They're pouring $830,000 directly into North Carolina for this ad buy because they're seeing an opportunity, and they're also touting their success level because they say that in 22 primaries on the federal level and close to 200 on the state level in 2022, they won more than 80% of those races. So I'm just wondering, do folks think that this is a effective strategy? Do they think that the MAGA supporters will just kind of like rally even further behind them, or what's going on with this? Because like I said, this is a major Republican donor. Koch brothers are oftentimes talked about, and they are saying, hold on, we're going to pour our money into anybody but Trump.
Mark, I believe there is a very serious issue for these thoughts. And the more you think about it, the more you believe that Trump is not such a bad choice for Republicans. I'll tell you why. Just go down the chain. Okay, DeSantis, he's too short. He cannot become president. Vivek
There's a height
Ramaswamy,
requirement.
he is just simply crook. And once the story about how he made his money and so on will go around, he will be eliminated from the race. Nikki Haley, she's a woman. She's brilliant. She's well-spoken, but she's a woman. United States is not ready for a woman president. So then you have to go to Mike Pence. Good luck with Mike Pence. And all the rest, don't want to even call all of them. So essentially, Trump is probably the most legitimate leader for Republicans, and he probably has the best chances, at least, even if he will lose to Biden, but he's not going to lose by much. So it will be a fairly close race, and everybody will again have another evidence of Trump's brilliance, and we'll have a great show. Why not?
Shaquille, what's your take on that? And everything, because like I said, this is a super PAC, and you deal with a lot with people in the political lane. So, what's your thoughts about this super PAC throwing their support to anybody but Trump?
I think the Koch brothers have got to be careful here, because there's certainly a possibility of the sort of anti-establishment crowd within, not just within the Republican Party, but in general across the United States, sort of. They're being a bit of a backlash against the Koch brothers. And certainly it's worth noting that Michael Moore's film about environmental issues, it points out where solar panels and a whole heap of other things are actually causing more damage. Biofuels are causing more damage to the environment than what they're saving. The Koch brothers were actually implicated in that as being beneficiaries of some of the renewable energy moves. So I think they should be a little bit careful. But also, as Sasha rightly points out, I don't, if I was in America, if I was a Republican, I don't think I'd be particularly excited by anybody up there. And look, with Vivek, I know you don't like him, Sasha. I quite liked his energy. I think he's kind of fun and different, but I don't think he's got any chance at all of winning the primary, and I think he would have zero chance of winning a general election. So, like he's having a shot. Good luck to him. I think he sort of got under the skin of some of the other more established politicians. So that was all fun to watch. But I don't think he's really got a shot. And as for the others, well, the dude from North Dakota, nobody can even remember him. Hutchinson.
I think Vivek Ramaswamy has a chance, man.
Steve, may I ask you, how much do you know about Vivek Ramaswamy and his career? What kind of scientist he is? How he made his money? Do you have any idea?
Sasha, I'm not gonna debate the pros and cons of Vivek Ramaswamy, because
I
don't think
Steve.
let me just finish my thoughts. So based on that, I think that you're right that Trump is probably going to be the nominee, and the Center for American Prosperity, or whatever they're called. I think this is a dangerous game for them to be playing. But here's the question: no matter who it ends up being, even if it's somebody who's like Tim Scott, who you don't really think's got a shot, but let's just say that Tim Scott became the nominee. The question is, one, could he beat Biden? And two, more importantly, if Biden was to step aside, could he beat whoever would be likely to replace Biden on the Democratic ticket? What about somebody who's reasonably articulate, good-looking, energetic, like Gavin Newsom, or a number of other high-profile Democrats? That's what the Republicans need, and I don't think they've got that. It'd be different if they had a Ted Cruz or a Jim Jordan or somebody who Republicans generally like.
Let me explain something before. Okay, here's my. I think that Vivek Ramaswamy, if Trump wins the nomination, probably will be on the ticket. I think he has a good spot. I think that he's just a showboat.
Steve, how much? Steve, question. How much do you know about Vivek Ramaswamy background and what he's done in his life?
All I know, I don't know much about him. I mean, he's a life science guy
Okay, let
sitting on
me
a lot of
help you.
cash.
Let me help you
um,
and educate you a little bit.
but
This is
real quick, let me
from
tell
New
you,
York.
I think all
This,
of us are doing all,
this is
all of us
from
were
New
doing
York.
all of us are doing this. But here,
Okay,
let me finish my
here
point.
is from
The
New
point
York Times. Here is material from New York Times just a couple of days
New York
ago.
Times.
Must be true then.
He is not a scientist at all. He has undergraduate in biology, and this is basically any idiot can get that. He continued his studies in Yale University to become to get a law degree. Why he needed law degree? To set up companies, including public companies, to screw people. What he did as a public company, he bought for nothing a patent from GlaxoSmithKline, which had 4 failed clinical studies about a drug. Doesn't matter, he got it for a song. He developed a public company that had it when it was incepted. It had 8 employees, including his mother and his brother, and they knowingly had 4 failed medical trials. They went on, raised money, got capitalization up to $3 billion, had
Show
a
me, like,
5th
they're
clinical.
a lot.
Hold on, I'm not finished yet.
Go
Thank
ahead.
you. Okay, they got final 5th clinical trial. It absolutely failed. Stock went down in price 75% in one day, and then in the next couple of months it disappeared completely. So several investors, mutual funds, they all lost money because Vivek knew that there were 4 failed clinical. Okay, I finished. Do it.
Sasha, just a quick thing.
Sasha, thank you for that. I mean, we do. Sasha Starr raises a good point. We do need to learn more about the candidates. But before, and Sasha, here's what I want to say. All of us are doing Donald Trump a favor by giving him so much attention. You know, think about that. It's like a bratty kid. If we just focus on something
we're
else.
going into an election. We're going into an election. A question's going to be asked. The Democrats aren't going to have primaries, so we have to do analysis of the Republicans, and I think it's ridiculous.
I got what I need.
Okay,
Joe
I'll
Biden,
tell you
a
one
president
thing.
for all ages.
But we're speaking about Joe Biden. Steve, we're speaking about Joe Biden as well. What ends up
Trump
happening is
winning
that
the nomination.
Joe Biden
The
is above all
Trumpism
reproach from
has
the guests
to
on this
end,
show.
and the only natural end of Trumpism is if he will get the nomination, he will get to a general election, he will lose it miserably in all states, and only that can finish Trumpism.
Just a real quick thing. Just a real quick thing. I just want to put this out there real quick. Sasha, thank you for the background on Vivek. I think that doesn't matter to the Republican Party and to the Republicans that are voting at this moment. The whole background that you just pointed out doesn't matter. Everything that, for example,
Trump was screwing shareholders in his condominiums. So Vivek is just smarter version of Trump.
Sasha, let me put this too. I dislike Vivek probably more than you do. So I understand the bringing of the history and everything else. I get that. And but that doesn't matter. Trump has a long history, but that didn't matter and doesn't matter even now. He's in the middle of 4 indictments. That doesn't matter. They are holding on to him. But with, Vivek, one thing that Shaq brought up is how quirky and some other things about him, which is probably a detriment to him in that whole Republican race at this moment. But Vivek will not get that nomination. It's going to be Trump because he's way ahead. The thing that actually, in all honesty, that's hurting Trump more so than anything, Mitch McConnell, because Mitch McConnell is having his medical issues on display, and that the Republican Party, and actually who went after Dianne Feinstein, who I also think should retire from Congress, but she should do it in her own way. I get that out of respect, but she needs to retire from Congress. The whole age thing with Joe Biden, and now people wanted to point to Dianne Feinstein and everything else. But now with Mitch McConnell deteriorating before our eyes, the same way Ronald Reagan did, and that was a Republican that really hurt a lot of Republicans as they watched that. It is something in the human psyche to watch someone struggle on national TV, and that really hurt. That's really affecting the whole age argument against Joe Biden. So now they're going to go after the age argument against Trump, and that truthfully is the only thing that's going to hurt his actual his candidacy more so than anything else.
But guys, let me ask you a question here, and I think this is I don't know, we have to research this, but would there be a possibility of at their conventions that they would actually take floor nominations, and it could be like, for example, in House of Cards when, you know, Claire Underwood and Kathy Durant were fighting for the nomination. Could there be some new names emerging? I think in the history that's happened when, you know, Hubert Humphrey and others were fighting, and you know, they ended up nominating someone else. We often forget that in 1992, let's not forget, for the Democratic nomination running against George H.W. Bush, you had Paul Tsongas. You had the guy from Nebraska, not John Kerry. There was another Kerry running from Nebraska. You had Tom Harkin from Iowa, and then you had an unknown guy named Bill Clinton that had 1% recognition, governor of a small state, Arkansas. He ended up getting the nomination, right? Barack Obama came out of nowhere. We thought it was going to be Hillary. Obama came up. Could there be a Democrat out there that emerges? Could there be a Republican out there that emerges? I don't think
there'd be a Republican to emerge from anywhere for as long as Trump has something to do with this election.
Maybe, yeah, okay. That's
now in relation to his chart. I mean, there's a lot of Trump bashing that goes on, and people, you know, say things like what Jacoby said is that, well, his past, it just didn't matter to Republicans. Of course it mattered. People didn't just look at his past and go, well, oh, that's fantastic, let's go with him. I think that people have to weigh up the pros and the cons. People obviously have some grave concerns about what they consider to be dishonest lies told by Biden about his past and about his achievements and all those sorts of things. But people are more focused on the effects that they're going to have and what the effects on their own life is going to be when somebody is in the executive. But in this particular situation, I think that you're in a difficult position. I think if you have presidential aspirations, what do? You come on stage, you've got to do battle with Trump and the MAGA crowd. If Trump ends up being convicted, if the trials go ahead and he ends up being convicted and he's in jail, maybe that leaves room for somebody else to come up. Or he gets elected from inside jail, right? If, on the other hand, he is not convicted, or he appeals his cases before they get there or whatever, and somehow those cases go away, then I think that it would be very hard to go up against you, because you're going to have so many off the Republican base and certainly the MAGA crowd that aren't going to vote for you or are going to detest you. This is the problem that DeSantis has, because without Trump endorsing him, he's going to be in a problem. And Trump has repeatedly stated that, or indicated that if he doesn't get the nomination, he'll start his own independent party. So I think that in this election cycle, it's going to be very difficult. And let's just say that Trump, for some reason, became unable to compete in the 2024 election. Does that mean he's going to be back in 2028? Because I don't see Trump going away. I don't see Trump going, all right, that's it. That my political career is finished now. I'll move on. I don't think that's going to happen. So Republicans are going to have to do something with him.
Well, let me. He's changed. Well, let me. I'm trying to add some levity to the show today, because it's Friday. It's Labor Day Friday. And our Labor Day blog will be. Are we having a show on Monday?
Yeah.
Are we having a show on Monday? Okay.
I said yes. Yes.
Shaquille, don't forget that even if he's not going to make it in 28, there is still 32. He can still make it in 32.
Well, I'll close out my monologue, because I have to leave at 11, but I'll close out on the meaning of Labor Day. because I may not be here on Monday. But
Okay,
the bottom line
huge
is this.
opinion show lately.
Trump disrupted the political process. I mean, that's one thing we can say. So that's, he was able to
Is that
come
a
in
bad
and
thing?
beat entrenched Republicans. But I tell you, what they should do, as I said, like I said, I'm going to give everyone a signed copy of President Joe Biden's book. And I'm so honored that the president sent me a handwritten note. He said, "Dear Steve, in 2020, we started the work of our time to restore the soul of America." Huh? Doesn't that sound like Joe Biden? The soul of America. Democracy is on attack, the backbone of our nation. Because of you, we made important progress. And we'll get this. He's taking on the anti-vaxxers by having a picture on the back masked with Kamala, Doug Emhoff, and the vice president.
Because of your veteran background, we can't see it. Just so you know.
You can't see this.
No, because of your veteran background, we can't see it.
Yeah, you got it.
You blurred the background, so we can't really see it.
He's got it masked, fully masked. He's taking on the anti-vax. Really? He's sending a book to everybody? I mean, that's weird, man. But anyway, soul of America. He always says that. What is the soul of America?
Yeah, but that's the whole thing. What does that stuff mean? We're in a battle
I
for the soul
don't know,
of America.
but he always says
So
this
therefore,
election's about the soul of America.
somebody who's focused on things like taxes is going to say, "Well, my soul craves for me to pay more in tax." I mean, it's just not. There's so much like political just shit that they just.
Shaquille, let's be very clear. Shaquille and Steve.
Hang on,
Shaquille and Steve, let's be very clear.
Mark, I do want to ask you a question though, Steve. In the interest of being fair to both sides, if you're going to celebrate Labor Day, don't you think that there should be like a capitalist day, a public holiday, or maybe a day where all the employees don't get a public holiday, they just have to work for free or something to show some sort of support for the capitalists that built your country?
Huh? So the thing that I think you guys were pointing out earlier,
Steve, I tried to make a joke
basically,
at you, and you're staring blankly at me.
is basically
That's silence.
I think that's a good point.
is basically about messaging. As you see, Biden is very old school and the Democrat Party still can't keep up on messaging. The Republican Party understands messaging and can actually get their message out better. No matter how corrupt it is, messaging. That's what it sounds like. Because the soul of the party doesn't make any sense.
Hold a second. To tell me that message that Steve just mentioned, that it's a fight for the soul of America and everything along those lines. That's a message that I have heard from both parties and everything, because they always are trying to make it seem like it is a battle between good and evil. It's kind of like the old, and I'll use a science fiction analogy, the Star Wars or Star Trek analogy, that one side is good, the other side is inherently evil, and that is totally false.
But just to point out, what's easier to understand? Hey, we're going to battle for the soul of the party as the key piece, or hey, let's just make America great. What the heck is great?
Let me tell you one thing.
It's easy for people to understand.
Yeah, well, Jacoby, let me ask you a question. When Biden comes out and says, we just want people to pay their fair share in taxes, what does fair share mean?
Let Steve go, because we were being unfair.
I got to close out early, guys. I had to get ready for another show. And Sasha, I want to come on Sasha's show next week. But
Sasha's got to get ready to the show very shortly.
Real quickly, the one thing I'll say before I close out, I'm going to close out on Labor Day because I've got to leave early to get ready for my show. But the one thing is Joe Biden is getting hard to understand because his messaging is all over the place. I mean, he'll come in there. I welcome them to North Carolina. He'll say, doing a speech, he'll say, "This is for the soul of America," and then he'll go, "Our ships at sea, the democracy's under attack," and then he'll go into something else, and he's just all over the place. And I think people are having a understanding what he stands for. But let me say this: I'm going to close out on Labor Day, leave a little bit early today. Labor Day, my monologue, which will be on Tuesday, because probably be off on Monday. Labor Day is a day we celebrate the end of summer, the beginning of the fall, football, the U.S. Open, Heineken beer and a hamburger, watching U.S. Open. If I don't go next year, I'm going to go to the Open. And
that's all 2 beers a week.
Yeah, but at the end of the day, Labor Day is about
2 beers a week.
Labor Day is about celebrating workers in our country, and it started in the 19th century celebrating championing worker safety and terrible conditions workers were working in. Unions were formed, people fought for workers, and at the end of the day, even in the Haymarket affair in 1886 in Chicago, it turned into a violent protest. So on this Labor Day, we just want to think of anyone working, those working in manufacturing shop floors, those working in clerical jobs, those working in healthcare, which we can't forget during the pandemic. And as we celebrate Labor Day, let's think of the future of work. I think all of us owe it to ourselves as we talk about AI and digital innovation. What is the new role going to be? What is the new workplace going to be like? What is new work going to be like? What jobs will be displaced? And what are the rights of our workers to know how their jobs will be replaced by robots and technology? Hopefully, whoever's in the White House, whoever's in the governor's office in North Carolina can start having those decisions, because it's happening as we speak. So that's my Labor Day message today. Enjoy a wonderful day, a weekend. And tomorrow is the African American Cultural Festival in Raleigh. I'm going to try to go on Sunday, and lots of really good activities going on. So folks, have a great day wherever you are. Be safe. And remember, this is about the soul of America. Just kidding. Thank you. I'm Steve Rao, and I approve this.
Really, that's what it's all about. You approve this
Maybe I'll
message as you're running for politics and all of those.
with my Biden book like this.
And Mark, now that we're talking about soul in America, where does the expression come, soul food? Why is that black food?
Soul of America. That's my Joe Biden imitation. You can't
What was the
understand
question
Joe
again?
anymore. You got to really dial in, man. You know, you can't even hear him talk much anymore because he talks very low.
Yep.
So he's getting tired. Anyway, thank you all so much. Happy Labor Day to all. Talk to you soon. Have a good day.
Take care, Steve. Have a good weekend.
God bless.
Yep, and like I said, it's get ready time to start the Russian show very shortly, and all along those lines. I'd have to look up the definitions and everything around soul food, but there are some great soul food restaurants here in this area and everything here in Durham and other places. You asked me why that was a term and everything, Lisa. I'd have to actually look it up to figure out when it came about. It might have been during the Harlem Renaissance for all I know and everything, but I'll do some research and come back to you on that question and everything and all along those lines. The only other thing I was going to bring up really quickly on the news before getting over there to Sasha's show is we had talked about other countries and their attitudes toward people. Apparently, Elon Musk is being very quiet because a retired teacher was sentenced to death in Saudi Arabia after he criticized folk online. So he was definitely doing some online criticism. I'm imagining it was of the Saudi government. And I guess because it was on X or maybe something that was on his platform, folks are wanting Elon. And I don't think Elon graduated from college either, because I did hear somebody talking about college and all along those lines. I know that some of the other technocrats did not graduate from college, but definitely that is what he is facing some criticism for, because I guess folks want him to come out adamantly against what happened or is happening in that particular country. So it'll be interesting to see what goes on in that space.
Oh, Shaq had a point that he wanted to make before Steve closed out, because we wanted to jump back to Shaq because he had something that he wanted to let out.
The moment has well and truly passed, so that's okay, Jatovi.
Okay.
And the only thing I was going to say,
that if I felt the need to repeat it, I would have done so by myself. I don't need you to come in to help me out with that.
And on that note,
courteous. I mean,
yeah. You've been very courteous, Jatovi. We'll
on that note, speaking of Sasha, because I do have to get over there to that show because I don't see Nick around and all along those lines. But I was going to say, and maybe I'll ask Sasha, apparently we have watchers that are watching from Russia, because I did look at some of our stats and I got to find out where the heck Kostovo is, because apparently there are two folks, maybe Putin's family is watching and all along those lines, because we got some folks that were watching from Russia in addition to Germany. So I did see there were some of the folks that were watching from when I was looking that up yesterday. So we got some folks that are spying.
Marco, what platform are they watching?
Huh?
Do you know what platform they're watching on? Is it LinkedIn? Is it Pod TV? You don't know.
I imagine they're watching on Pod TV because it was the Vimeo account that I was looking up. So I imagine it was our platform. But on that note, let's get on out of here. I've got to go deal with Sasha. So we'll catch y'all on Monday and on Labor Day.
Y'all have a good weekend.